Hey there, lovely friends. Welcome back to Shabby Chic Wonder. If you adore vintage farmhouse charm and dreamy outdoor spaces, you're in for a treat. Today, I'm sharing DIY ideas to transform your small backyard into a cozy vintage farmhouse retreat. From rustic wooden gates to charming mason jar lanterns, I'll show you simple, budget-friendly ways to create a warm and inviting garden that feels like a countryside escape. So, grab a cup of tea, get comfy, and let's bring that shabby chic magic to your outdoor space. Don't forget to watch until the end because I have some styling tips that will make all the difference. Let's get started. A beautiful garden begins at the entrance, and a rustic wooden gate can instantly set the tone for a vintage farmhouse aesthetic. Imagine a weathered white wooden gate, slightly chipped from time, standing between two lush floral trellises. It not only adds charm, but also creates a warm, inviting feel. To enhance the look, drape climbing roses or ivy over the gate, letting nature blend seamlessly with your shabby chic style. A simple touch like a wrought iron handle or a distressed wooden sign can add even more personality. Once your gate is in place, think about the surrounding area. An old wooden trellis with delicate vines can frame the entrance beautifully. You can even add a small bench nearby, perfect for displaying potted flowers or vintage lanterns. This rustic entryway serves as a gentle transition from the outside world into your cozy backyard retreat, setting the stage for the rest of your farmhouse-inspired garden. Nothing says vintage farmhouse like the charm of repurposed wooden crates turned into rustic planters. With a bit of sanding, a coat of distressed pastel paint, and some stenciled lettering, you can transform old crates into beautiful garden accents. Fill them with fragrant lavender, cheerful daisies, or cascading ivy for a touch of country elegance. The natural wood tones and soft pastel colors create a perfect balance between rustic and romantic. To arrange your weathered planters, stack them at different heights for a layered look, or place them along your garden path for a whimsical touch. You can even attach them to a wooden wall or fence for a vertical garden effect. Adding vintage metal handles or small chalkboard labels will give them extra character. This simple yet effective DIY project instantly brings an aged, well-loved feel to your backyard decor, making it feel like a page out of a farmhouse design. A cozy backyard wouldn't be complete without a charming seating area where you can relax and unwind. Start with a distressed farmhouse table and mismatched wooden chairs, each painted in soft, muted colors for a true shabby chic effect. Layer the seating with floral cushions, delicate lace throws, and a vintage table runner to enhance the cozy ambience. The goal is to create a space that feels both stylish and lived in, like a well-loved countryside retreat. To complete the look, place your seating area under a wooden pergola or a string of warm fairy lights to create a soft, romantic glow in the evening. Add a small side table with a pitcher of fresh lemonade or a vintage teapot filled with wildflowers to bring a personal touch. This outdoor setup will quickly become your favorite spot to enjoy morning coffee, afternoon tea, or intimate gatherings with friends and family. Soft lighting can transform any outdoor space, and mason jar lanterns are the perfect shabby chic touch. These simple yet charming lanterns can be filled with fairy lights, tea candles, or even LED flickering lights to create a warm and inviting glow. The glass jars reflect the light beautifully, casting a cozy ambience that feels both rustic and romantic. You can hang them from tree branches, arrange them on a vintage wooden tray, or line them along a garden path for a magical evening effect. For an added farmhouse feel, consider wrapping the tops of the jars with twine or lace, or even painting them in a soft pastel hue. Mixing different jar sizes and arranging them at varying heights adds depth and interest to your garden decor. Whether you're hosting an outdoor dinner or simply enjoying a quiet night under the stars, these DIY lanterns will bring a touch of nostalgic charm to your small garden space. Incorporating upcycled pieces into your garden is a wonderful way to add character while embracing sustainability. Old tools like rusted rakes, vintage spades, and weathered wheelbarrows can be repurposed as decorative accents. Lean an antique rake against a wooden fence and use it as a hanger for small potted plants, or turn an old watering can into a whimsical flower vase. The key is to let the worn-out textures and aged patina shine through, enhancing the rustic aesthetic. Adding small flea market finds, like chipped ceramic pots or vintage bird cages, can make your backyard feel like a true farmhouse retreat. If you have an old wooden ladder, lean it against a garden wall and use its steps as plant shelves. These unexpected yet charming pieces tell a story, bringing history and warmth to your outdoor space. By mixing practical elements with decorative ones, you create a garden that feels both lived in and timeless. Nothing adds a personal touch to a farmhouse garden like handmade wooden signs. A simple piece of reclaimed wood can be transformed into a charming sign with just a bit of paint and stenciling. Try classic farmhouse phrases like "Welcome to our garden," "Fresh flowers," or "Gather and grow." Use soft pastel colors with a slightly distressed finish to maintain the shabby chic aesthetic. Hanging the sign on a fence, shed, or garden gate adds an inviting element to your backyard decor. To take it a step further, create multiple signs and display them at different heights throughout your garden. A small sign placed near a flower bed can add a whimsical touch, while a larger one on a trellis can serve as a focal point. You can even use vintage frames to create a more polished look. These handcrafted details make your garden feel cozy, personalized, and uniquely yours. Vintage watering cans aren't just practical, they can also be stunning decorative pieces. A collection of metal watering cans in various sizes, all with a slightly rusted or aged patina, makes for a beautiful garden display. Place them on a distressed wooden bench or arrange them along a garden path, filling each one with wildflowers, roses, or fresh herbs for a charming, lived-in look. To enhance the display, try hanging a few watering cans from hooks on a wooden fence or pergola. This not only saves space, but also adds a lovely vertical element to your garden decor. Pair them with other antique finds like an old milk crate or a repurposed wooden stool to create a vignette that feels straight out of a countryside cottage. The mix of weathered metal, fresh flowers, and rustic textures makes this an effortlessly beautiful garden accent. Hanging baskets are a simple yet effective way to bring depth and charm to a small garden. Opt for wicker baskets with a distressed finish, and fill them with lush trailing plants like ivy, petunias, or ferns. Hanging them from an old wooden beam or a pergola instantly creates a romantic, cottage-style atmosphere. For an added touch, mix in different sizes and shapes of baskets to create an organic, layered effect. If you want to enhance the shabby chic aesthetic, line the baskets with lace or burlap and choose flowers in soft pastel shades. This setup not only saves space but also gives your backyard a dreamy, countryside-inspired look. A charming stone pathway can add so much character to your backyard. Choose natural, irregularly shaped stones to create a meandering path that looks as though it has been there for years. Line the edges with vintage lanterns, small wooden signs, or delicate white flowers to enhance the farmhouse aesthetic. For an extra whimsical touch, place small stepping stones with engraved words like love, grow, or bloom along the path. This creates a subtle yet beautiful storytelling element. A well-designed pathway invites guests to explore your garden and leads them on a journey through your cozy outdoor retreat. The finishing touches bring your entire backyard decor together. Layer in soft textiles like linen tablecloths, floral cushions, and vintage lace curtains for a cozy, romantic atmosphere. Place antique finds like a distressed mirror, a weathered birdhouse, or an old-fashioned watering trough to complete the look. Finally, add small, meaningful details that reflect your personal style. A repurposed teacup filled with succulents, a stack of vintage books on an outdoor table, or a delicate wind chime made from old silverware. Each piece contributes to the charm of your shabby chic garden. By carefully curating each element, you'll create a space that feels warm, inviting, and beautifully timeless. And there you have it. With just a few DIY projects and upcycled treasures, you can turn your small backyard into a vintage farmhouse dream. From rustic planters to cozy seating and charming garden decor, every little detail adds warmth and personality to your space. I'd love to hear from you. Which DIY idea was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to Shabby Chic Wonder, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a cozy DIY idea. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.